The night before my sister's wedding, I found my mom sobbing in the kitchen. When I told her how excited I was for tomorrow, she looked at me with tears streaming down her face and said, "There's something you need to know about Talee." That's when everything I thought I knew about our family shattered. My name is Avery Mitchell. I'm 24 years old, and until yesterday, I thought I had the most normal, boring family in suburban Connecticut. My mom, Deirdre, is a high school English teacher. My dad, Knox, works as an architect. And my sister, Talia, well, she's always been the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect job as a pediatric nurse, and now she was about to have the perfect wedding to her perfect fiancé, Ren. I'd flown in from Chicago 2 days before the wedding. My tiny apartment there is filled with half-finished canvases. I'm an artist, or trying to be one anyway. Not quite the straightforward career path my parents had hoped for, but they'd been supportive in their own way. "As long as you're happy, honey," my mom would say, though I could always hear the silent, "But wouldn't a steady paycheck make you happier?" hanging in the air. The drive from the airport to my childhood home felt like traveling back in time. The same oak trees lined our street, their branches now heavy with early summer leaves. The same mailbox with the faded blue birds painted on it that Talia and I had decorated when I was 7 and she was 11. Even the faint smell of lilacs from Mrs. Pembroke's garden next door brought back a flood of memories. When I pulled into the driveway, my mom rushed out to greet me, her auburn hair, now with subtle highlights to cover the gray, pulled back in a loose bun. "Avery, you made it," she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug that smelled like the vanilla lotion she'd used for as long as I could remember. "How was your flight?" "Delayed, cramped, the usual," I said, returning her hug. "Where's everyone else?" "Your father's picking up Talia and Ren from their hotel. They stayed there last night after the rehearsal dinner venue walkthrough." She grabbed one of my bags. "Come on in, I've got your room all ready." The house looked like a wedding planning bomb had exploded inside it. Sample centerpieces cluttered the dining table, stacks of programs sat on the coffee table, and a garment bag containing what I assumed was my bridesmaid dress hung on the coat rack. "Wow, Mom, you've been busy." "Your sister wants everything perfect," she said, a hint of strain in her voice that I didn't pick up on then. And you know me, I can't say no to Talia. None of us could. Talia had always had that effect on people, especially our parents. When she decided she wanted horseback riding lessons at age 10, my dad worked weekends for 3 months to afford them. When she was accepted to her dream college across the country, my parents remortgaged the house to help with tuition. She wasn't spoiled, exactly. Just prioritized. I just finished unpacking when I heard the front door open, followed by my dad's booming voice. "Look who I found wandering around town." I raced downstairs, and there she was, my big sister, Talia. Her dark hair was longer than when I'd last seen her at Christmas, and she looked tired around the eyes, but still radiant. Behind her stood Ren, tall and slim with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "Avies!" Talia squealed, launching herself at me. "You're finally here." I hugged her tightly. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." And I meant it. Despite the subtle competition that had always existed between us, despite living in Talia's shadow for most of my life, I truly loved my sister. She'd been my protector through school bullies, my confidant through first heartbreaks, my cheerleader when I decided to pursue art instead of something practical. "Let me look at you," Talia said, holding me at arm's length. "Still rocking the artist vibe, I see." She tugged at my paint-splattered jean jacket with affection. "Some of us have to maintain the family rebel position," I joked. My dad joined our huddle, his arm around my mother's waist. Knox Mitchell had always been the stereotype of a dad: bad jokes, weekend golf, and unwavering dependability. His dark hair was now more salt than pepper, but his smile was the same one I'd seen in family photos my entire life. "The gang's all here," he announced, but something in his voice sounded off, too bright, too forced. I glanced at my mom and noticed her smiling too widely, her hand clutching my dad's shirt just a little too tightly. "Not everyone," Talia said. "Uncle Callum's flight doesn't get in until tomorrow morning." I felt rather than saw my parents stiffen beside me. "Right," my dad said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Callum." Uncle Callum was my dad's younger brother. He'd always been the family wild card, never married, constantly traveling for his job in international sales, showing up at holidays with extravagant Gifts and stories from exotic locations. I'd always found him fascinating. My parents less so. I still can't believe he's making it, Talia continued, either not noticing or choosing to ignore the sudden tension. He hasn't been back for a family event in what, 5 years? 7, my dad corrected, his voice tight. Well, I'm glad he's coming, Talia said firmly. I wanted everyone here. Wren, perhaps sensing the strange undercurrent, stepped forward. Avery, great to see you again. Talia's been talking nonstop about having her sister back home. I liked Wren. He'd been dating my sister for 3 years, and in that time, he'd always treated me like I mattered, asking about my art, remembering details about my life, never making me feel like just Talia's little sister. He was steady in a way that complemented Talia's occasional whirlwind energy. All good things, I hope? I teased. Mostly Talia laughed, but something about it sounded hollow. My mom clapped her hands together. Who's hungry? I've made lasagna, Avery's favorite. Actually, Talia said, checking her watch, Wren and I need to run. We have that thing with the photographer, remember? My mom's face fell slightly. Oh, right. The sunset photo test. We won't be long, Wren promised. Save us some lasagna? Of course, my mom nodded, but I caught the hurt in her eyes. As Talia and Wren prepared to leave, I noticed something odd. Talia hugged my mom goodbye, kissed her cheek, then deliberately moved to the door without acknowledging our dad. Knox noticed too, his hand, half raised for a hug, slowly lowered back to his side. After they left, an awkward silence descended on the kitchen. So, I said brightly, lasagna? Dinner was strange. My parents spoke about everything except the wedding, my job, local gossip, the weather, while exchanging loaded glances when they thought I wasn't looking. I tried to fill the silence with stories about Chicago and my latest art commission, but it felt like shouting into a void. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Okay, what's going on? I asked, putting down my fork. You're both acting weird. Is there something wrong with the wedding? No, my mom said quickly. Everything's on track. Then why does it feel like I'm eating dinner in the Twilight Zone? My parents exchanged another one of those looks. Talia's just got pre-wedding jitters, my dad said finally. It's normal. That doesn't explain why she's barely speaking to you, I pointed out. My dad's face hardened. Avery, drop it. Please. His tone surprised me. My dad was usually the most easygoing person I knew. I'd seen him truly angry maybe 3 times in my entire life. Fine, I muttered, returning to my lasagna. Later that evening, Talia and Wren returned, but instead of joining us in the living room, Talia went straight upstairs, claiming a headache. Wren lingered awkwardly before following her. I should check on her, my mom said, getting up from the couch. Let me, I offered. We haven't had sister time yet anyway. I knocked on Talia's old bedroom door and heard muffled voices stop abruptly. Who is it? Talia called. It's me. Can I come in? A pause then. Now's not great, Avies. I pushed the door open anyway, finding Talia sitting on the edge of her bed, Wren beside her with a concerned expression. Her eyes were red-rimmed. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing, Talia said quickly. Just wedding stress. Bull, I replied, closing the door behind me. Something's going on. Mom and Dad are acting weird. You're avoiding Dad completely, and everyone's walking on eggshells. Avery, please, Wren said quietly. Now's not the time. When is the time? The wedding's tomorrow. Exactly, Talia snapped. The wedding is tomorrow, and I don't need you coming in here with your typical Avery drama, trying to make everything about you. Her words hit me like a slap. That's not fair. Life's not fair, she retorted bitterly, then looked away. Just go, Avery. Please. I left, hurt and confused. Talia and I had our moments, but she'd never spoken to me like that before. In the hallway, I nearly collided with my dad, who'd clearly been listening. Dad, let her be, Avery, he said softly. Some things you can't fix. His eyes looked tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. He squeezed my shoulder gently, then walked away toward the master bedroom. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I gave up and headed downstairs for some water. As I approached the kitchen, I heard my mother's muffled sobs. I found her sitting at the kitchen island, clutching a mug of tea, tears streaming down her face. She looked up when I entered, quickly trying to wipe her cheeks. "Mom? What's going on?" "Nothing, honey. Just wedding emotions." I sat beside her. "Mom, I'm not a kid anymore. Something's seriously wrong, and no one will tell me what it is." She stared into her mug for a long moment. "There are some things parents keep from their children to protect them. I don't need protection. I need honesty. Is the wedding off? Is Talia sick? Are you and Dad having problems?" She flinched at my last question. "Mom, please. I love this family too. Whatever it is, I deserve to know." "You're right," she whispered. "You do deserve to know, but it's not my place to tell you." "Then whose place is it? Talia's, I suppose? Or your father's?" She took a shuddering breath. "Oh God, what a mess we've made." I reached for her hand. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. That's what family does, right?" My words seemed to break something in her. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm so excited for tomorrow," I continued, trying to comfort her. "I can't wait to see Talia walk down the aisle with Dad. She's going to be such a beautiful bride." My mom made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Oh, Avery." "What?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with decades of pain I'd never noticed before. "There's something you need to know about Talia." Her voice broke. "Something that's going to change everything." "Mom, you're scaring me." She took both my hands in hers. "Talia isn't your father's daughter." The words didn't make sense at first, like she was speaking a language I almost understood, but couldn't quite translate. "What are you talking about?" "Of course she is." "No, Avery, she's not." My mom's voice steadied, as if finally saying the words aloud had given her strength. "Your father is not Talia's biological father." The kitchen seemed to tilt around me. "Then who?" "Callum," she whispered. "Your Uncle Callum is Talia's biological father." And just like that, everything I thought I knew about our family shattered into 1,000 pieces. I stared at my mother, certain I'd misheard her. "That's not funny, Mom. I wish I was joking, Avery." Deirdre's hand trembled around her mug. "I've carried this secret for 28 years. The kitchen suddenly felt too bright, too sterile. The wedding countdown chalkboard on the refrigerator, Talia and Ren, one more day, seemed to mock us. "Uncle Callum?" My voice sounded distant, like I was hearing myself speak underwater. "Dad's brother? That's not possible." My mother's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of shame and defiance. "It was a long time ago. Just once. Knox and I were going through a rough patch. He was working 60-hour weeks at the architecture firm, trying to make partner. We were practically strangers passing in the hallway. So you slept with his brother." The words tasted bitter on my tongue. "I'm not proud of it," she whispered. "Callum came to stay with us for a few weeks when his apartment flooded. Knox was barely home. I was lonely. It doesn't excuse what happened, but that's how it was." I tried to reconcile this information with the mother I'd known my entire life, the woman who taught Shakespeare to high schoolers, who baked the cookies for every big sale, who had been married to my father for 30 years. "Does Dad know?" "Yes." She took a shaky breath. "I told him when I found out I was pregnant. I couldn't lie to him about something so important." "And he stayed? He raised Talia as his own?" I couldn't imagine the strength that would take to look at your brother's child every day and choose to love her as your own. "Your father is a better man than most," my mother said quietly. "He said if I wanted to make our marriage work, he would raise the baby as his. The only condition was that we never tell anyone, not Talia, not Callum, not anyone." "Wait," I said, my mind racing to catch up. "Uncle Callum doesn't know either?" She shook her head. "Knox thought it would be easier that way. Callum was never the settling down type, you know how he is. And Knox was afraid of losing his brother entirely. The pieces started falling into place, the tension whenever Uncle Callum visited. The way my father would watch Talia and Callum interact at family gatherings, his eyes guarded. The striking similarity between Talia's deep-set eyes and Callum's that I'd always attributed to the Mitchell family genes. So why is everyone freaking out now? After all these years? My mother stared into her tea as if it contained answers. Talia and Ren did one of those mail-order DNA tests last month. They thought it would be a fun pre-wedding activity, something about checking for genetic compatibility or health risks or whatever young couples do these days. My stomach dropped. And Talia's results showed Knox isn't her father. Mom's voice cracked. She confronted us 3 days ago. Said her father, her real father, is listed as a close relative, but not her parent. She demanded to know the truth. And you told her about Uncle Callum? We had to. She threatened to contact every male relative in the family for DNA tests otherwise. I tried to imagine how Talia must have felt. 28 years of identity shattered by an email from a DNA testing company. No wonder she'd been avoiding our father. Does Uncle Callum know now? No. My mother looked up, her eyes suddenly panicked. And he can't find out, Avery. Not tomorrow. Not at the wedding. It would destroy your father. But Talia invited him specifically, I said, remembering the strange tension earlier. She said she wanted him here. My mother's face paled. Oh, God. I didn't realize. I thought she just included him in the original invitations months ago. Mom, if Talia invited him deliberately, she wouldn't tell him. But her voice lacked conviction. She's angry, but she wouldn't do that to her father, to Knox, would she? I honestly didn't know. The Talia I thought I knew wouldn't, but this was a Talia whose entire identity had been upended. I should talk to her, I said, standing. My mother grabbed my wrist. No, not tonight. Please, Avery, let her sleep. The wedding's tomorrow. We just need to get through tomorrow. I sat back down slowly, my mind whirling with questions. How has Dad been handling this? He's heartbroken, she admitted. Not because Talia isn't biologically his. That hasn't mattered to him for 28 years. He's devastated because she won't speak to him. Won't let him explain that biology doesn't make a father. And Ren? Does he know? Yes. He was there when she confronted us. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. He's been amazing, actually. Trying to keep the peace, reminding Talia that Knox is the man who raised her. I nodded, thinking of Ren's steady presence earlier that evening. Does anyone else know? Just us. And now you. She reached for my hand. I'm sorry to put this on you, Avery. We never wanted either of you girls to know. I don't understand why you never told. Her? I said. She's an adult. She could have handled it. Could she? Would you have wanted to know something like this? My mother's eyes searched mine. Besides, it wasn't just about Talia. Telling her meant risking Knox's relationship with his brother. It meant exposing my greatest shame. It meant changing how both of you girls saw our family. I couldn't argue with that. In the space of 10 minutes, my entire understanding of our family had been rewritten. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, my mother admitted. But I need you to promise me something, Avery. Promise you won't say anything to Callum tomorrow. Let us get through this wedding first. Then we'll figure out what comes next. Before I could answer, we heard footsteps on the stairs. We both froze, but it was just my father coming down for a glass of water. He stopped in the doorway when he saw us. You told her, he said to my mother. Not a question. She nodded. She deserved to know. My father, the man I thought was Talia's father for my entire life, looked suddenly older, the weight of decades of secrecy visible in the slump of his shoulders. He came and sat across from us at the island. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, he said to me. We should have told both of you girls years ago. That's on me. It was my decision, too, my mother said quickly. No, he shook his head. I was the one who insisted we keep it secret. I was afraid. He looked down at his hands. Afraid Talia would love me less if she knew. Afraid you'd think less of your mother. Afraid of losing my brother. So many fears. You raised her, I said softly. You're her father in every way that matters. A sad smile crossed his face. I've been telling myself that for 28 years. I hoped Talia would see it the same way. She will, I insisted. She just needs time. The wedding's tomorrow, he reminded me. And Callum arrives in the morning. You don't think Talia would tell him, do you? I asked. My father exchanged a look with my mother. I don't know. 3 days ago, I would have said no without hesitation. But now? She's hurt and angry. People do unpredictable things when they're in pain. We should talk to her, I suggested. All of us, together. We've tried, my mother said. She won't listen. Says she needs space to process. Maybe she'll listen to you, my father said hopefully. You two have always been close. Had we? Growing up in Talia's shadow, I'd often felt more like her admirer than her equal. But there had been moments, late-night conversations about our dreams, her fierce protection when kids at school teased me about my art, the way she'd call just to check in when I moved to Chicago, that spoke of a deeper bond. I'll try, I promised. First thing tomorrow. Thank you, Avery. My father reached across the island and squeezed my hand. You're a good sister, a good daughter. The simple praise brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I'd spent so much of my life feeling second best to Talia in academics, in career choices, in our parents' attention. Now I wondered if those perceptions had been filtered through a lens I hadn't known existed. You should get some sleep, my mother advised, glancing at the clock showing 1:30 a.m. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I nodded and stood to go, but paused. For what it's worth, I think you're both incredibly strong, to have carried this for so long. My father's eyes grew glassy. We did what we thought was right at the time. That's all any parent can do. As I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, the weight of my family's secret pressed on my chest. How had they maintained this facade for nearly 3 decades? Every family photo, every Christmas morning, every graduation, all viewed through a different lens now. I passed Talia's room and paused. A sliver of light showed beneath the door. She was still awake. Part of me wanted to knock, to confront her now rather than waiting for morning. But what would I even say? I had no roadmap for this kind of conversation. In my childhood bedroom, I lay awake for hours, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Talia had helped me stick to the ceiling when I was 8. The big sister looks out for the little sister, she told me then. That's how it works. Had she meant it? Or had there always been a distance between us that I'd been too young to recognize? I thought of Talia throughout the years, the serious 11-year-old who'd walked me to my first day of kindergarten, holding my hand the entire way, the focused high school student who'd helped me with science projects while juggling her own advanced classes, the college graduate who'd hugged me fiercely at her commencement and whispered, "Your turn next, little sis." Those moments hadn't changed. Whatever else was happening, Talia was still my sister. Half-sister biologically, perhaps, but full sister in the ways that mattered. My phone buzzed with a text message, startling me from my thoughts. If it was from Talia, still awake? I texted back immediately, yes. Can't sleep. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, meet me on the porch swing? My heart raced as I replied, be there in 5. I pulled on a sweater over my pajamas and tiptoed downstairs, careful not to wake my parents. The old porch swing had been our spot since childhood, the place for ice cream in summer, hot chocolate in winter, and heart-to-hearts in all seasons. Talia was already there when I slipped outside, wrapped in her robe, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked both older and younger than her 28 years, the confident woman I knew, overlaid with the vulnerability of a child. "Hey," I said softly, sitting beside her. "Hey yourself." She didn't meet my eyes. Couldn't sleep? Too much on my mind. I hesitated, then added, "Mom told me about Uncle Callum." Talia's sharp intake of breath was the only indication she'd heard me. For several long moments, the only sound was the gentle creak of the swing. "I was going to tell you tomorrow," she finally said. After what?" She shrugged, the movement almost imperceptible. "After whatever happens at this wedding." A chill that had nothing to do with the night air ran through me. "Talia, what are you planning?" Nothing. She looked at me then, her eyes, Uncle Callum's eyes, I realized with a jolt, glistening with unshed tears. Everything. I don't know anymore, Avies. I reached for her hand. Talk to me. Please. What is there to say? Her laugh held no humor. My entire life has been a lie. The man I thought was my father isn't. My mother had an affair with my uncle, and everyone kept it from me for 28 years. They thought they were protecting you. They were protecting themselves, she corrected sharply. Their marriage. Their comfortable little life. That's not fair, I protested. Dad, Knox. He chose to raise you as his own. He loves you. Does he? She challenged. Or was I just his penance? His good deed? The living reminder of his wife's infidelity that he nobly tolerated? You know that's not true. You've seen how he loves you. She was silent for a moment. You know what hurts the most? All those times people said I had the Mitchell eyes or Nex's stubborn chin. And everyone just smiled and nodded, knowing it was all bullshit. They didn't all know. Just Mom and Dad. And now Uncle Callum is coming to the wedding. She looked out into the darkness. My biological father will be here tomorrow, and he has no idea who I really am to him. The realization hit me. You're going to tell him. Talia didn't confirm or deny it, which was an answer in itself. Talia, think about what that would do. To Uncle Callum. To Dad. To this whole family. Maybe it's time for the truth, she said softly. Maybe we've all lived with lies long enough. But at your wedding? Is that really how you want to remember this day? She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable in the dim porch light. How would you feel, Avery, if you discovered your entire identity was built on a lie? That the man you wanted to walk you down the aisle tomorrow isn't your father? That your real father has been showing up at Christmases and birthdays your whole life, giving you gifts and hugs, never knowing you're his daughter? I had no answer for that. No way to truly understand what she was feeling. I love Knox, she continued, her voice breaking. He raised me, but I can't pretend tomorrow. I can't walk down the aisle with him, say my vows, and smile for pictures while carrying this inside. I just can't. What does Ren say about all this? He says he'll support whatever I decide. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. That's why I'm marrying him. He sees me, the real me, even when I'm not sure who that is anymore. We sat in silence for a while, the swing creaking rhythmically beneath us. I thought about our family, the one I'd grown up in and the one I now knew existed. The perfect family photos that lined our hallway now seemed like artifacts from a fiction. I don't have any answers, I finally admitted. But whatever you decide, I'm on your side. You're my sister. That hasn't changed. Talia leaned her head on my shoulder, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. Half-sister, she corrected quietly. No, I said firmly. Whole sister. The biology doesn't change who we are to each other. She didn't respond, but I felt her tears dampening my sweater. I put my arm around her and held her close, the way she'd held me through childhood nightmares and teenage heartbreaks. I'm so angry, Avies, she whispered. I'm angry and confused and sad, and tomorrow I'm supposed to have the happiest day of my life. Whatever you decide to do, I told her, it will be okay. Maybe not right away, but eventually. How can you know that? Because we're family, I said simply. Real family, and real families survive even when things get messy. Talia straightened up and wiped her eyes. I should try to get some sleep. Big day tomorrow, right? I nodded, though neither of us knew what kind of day would truly be. As we stood to go inside, Talia hesitated. Avery, thanks for not hating me, for not taking sides. There are no sides here, I told her. Just people who love each other trying to find their way through something impossibly hard. She hugged me then, fiercely, like she was afraid I might disappear. I love you, little sis. Love you too, I whispered. Always. We crept back inside, the house quiet except for the gentle ticking of the hallway clock, counting down the hours to a wedding day that would change our family forever, one way or another. I woke to the sound of voices downstairs, too many for just my immediate family. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom window as I checked my phone, 9:17 a.m. The wedding was at 4 p.m. For one blissful moment, I forgot the revelations of last night. Then reality crashed back, and I sat up quickly. Had Talia made a decision? Was she going through with the wedding? Would she confront Uncle Callum? I threw on some clothes and hurried downstairs to find our living room transformed into wedding central. My mother was directing a small army of relatives who had arrived early to help, aunts arranging flowers, cousins organizing gift tables, my grandmother fussing over table settings. There she is. My mother's smile was too bright, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Avery, honey, can you help Aunt Vivian with these centerpieces? We're running behind schedule. Where's Talia? I asked quietly. Upstairs getting her hair done, my mother whispered back. She seems better this morning, more settled. And Uncle Callum? My mother's smile faltered. His flight landed an hour ago. Your father went to pick him up. The front door opened before I could respond, and there they were. My father and Uncle Callum laughing about something as they carried luggage inside. My stomach twisted at the sight of them together, the family resemblance now painfully obvious. How had none of us ever questioned Talia's striking similarity to her uncle? Uncle Callum spotted me and broke into a wide grin. There's my favorite niece. Your only niece, I corrected automatically, accepting his bear hug while avoiding eye contact with my father over Callum's shoulder. Even better, no competition. Callum held me at arm's length. Let me look at you. Still the family artist, huh? When are you going to have a big gallery show so I can brag about you? Callum had always been like this, a larger-than-life, quick with compliments, the fun uncle who breezed in with exotic gifts and stories before disappearing again. I'd adored him growing up. Now I saw him through new eyes. This was Talia's biological father, oblivious to the truth about the daughter he'd unknowingly created. I'm working on it, I managed to say. How was your flight? Terrible, he declared cheerfully. But worth it to see my favorite niece get married. Where is the bride-to-be, anyway? As if on cue, Talia appeared at the top of the stairs. Her hair was half done, elegant curls framing one side of her face while the other side was still in rollers. She froze when she saw Uncle Callum, her face draining of color. For a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. Then Talia seemed to shake herself and descended the stairs with forced calm. Uncle Callum, she said, her voice carefully controlled as she embraced him. You made it. Wouldn't miss it for the world, kiddo? He hugged her enthusiastically. Look at you, the most beautiful almost bride I've ever seen, even with those contraptions in your hair. Talia's laugh sounded strangled. Over Callum's shoulder, her eyes met mine, wide and panicked. I gave her an encouraging nod, silently willing her to stay calm. We should get back to your hair, my mother interjected quickly. The stylist is waiting. Right, Talia said, extracting herself from Callum's embrace. We'll catch up later? Count on it. Callum grinned. I've got a special wedding gift for you. As Talia followed my mother back upstairs, I saw her hands trembling. My father stood by the door, his expression a careful blank as he watched his brother, the man who had unwittingly fathered his daughter, move through the house with casual ease. Knox, this is quite the production you've got going here, Callum said, gesturing to the wedding preparations. Must be costing you a fortune. Nothing's too good for my daughter, my father replied, his emphasis on "my" so subtle that only those of us who knew the truth would notice. I excused myself and hurried upstairs to Talia's room. Inside, the hairstylist was working on the rest of her curls while my mother hovered nervously. When Talia saw me, she nodded toward the adjoining bathroom. I followed her in and closed the door. I can't do this, she whispered immediately, her composure crumbling. I thought I could, but seeing him, hearing him call me kiddo, like he always has, I just can't. What are you going to do? I asked, keeping my voice low. I don't know. She pressed her palms against her eyes. Part of me wants to call off the whole wedding. Part of me wants to scream the truth in the middle of the ceremony. And part of me just wants to pretend none of this is happening. What does Ren say? He says we should go through with the wedding and deal with the family stuff later. She lowered her hands, revealing reddened eyes. He thinks Uncle Callum deserves to hear the truth, but not like this. Not on our wedding day with an audience. That's actually really sensible, I admitted. I know. Ghost of a smile touched her lips. That's why I'm marrying him. The smile faded as quickly as it had appeared. But it doesn't solve the problem of walking down the aisle with a man who isn't my father, pretending everything's normal. Knox raised you, I reminded her. He is your father in every way that matters. Is he? She challenged. Or did he just do what was expected of him? Stay with the wife who cheated, raise the child that wasn't his, the honorable thing. You can't really believe that, I said. You've seen how he loves you. How proud he is of you. Talia was quiet for a moment. Do you remember when I broke my arm falling out of the treehouse when I was 10? I nodded. I'd been 6 at the time, terrified by the sound of my sister's scream and the sight of her arm bent at an impossible angle. Dad carried me all the way to the car, drove to the hospital with me in his lap, because I wouldn't let go of him. Her voice softened at the memory. He told me stories the whole time to distract me from the pain. Not once did he let on how scared he was. The nurse said she'd never seen a father so calm in a crisis. See? That's not a man doing what's expected. That's a father who loves his daughter. But he's not really. He is, I insisted. DNA doesn't make a father. Love does. Showing up does. Being there does. A knock at the bathroom door interrupted us. Talia? It was my mother. The stylist needs to finish your hair, honey. Coming, Talia called back. She looked at me, her expression still troubled. I need to figure this out before the ceremony, Avis. Whatever you decide, I promise, I'm with you. When we emerged from the bathroom, my mother gave us a questioning look. Everything okay? Fine, Talia said with forced brightness. Just sister stuff. The next few hours passed in a blur of wedding preparations. I helped with decorations, ran errands for my frazzled mother, and kept an eye on Talia, who seemed to grow more withdrawn as the clock ticked toward 4 p.m. Uncle Callum remained oblivious, charming relatives and helping set up chairs with his usual good-natured enthusiasm. Around noon, I found myself alone in the kitchen with my father, who was leaning against the counter, staring into a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. Dad, I said softly. He looked up, his eyes tired. Hey, kiddo. Are you okay? He gave me a sad smile. Not really, but I will be. Have you talked to Talia today? Tried to. She wouldn't open her door. He sighed heavily. Can't say I blame her. She's confused and hurt, I said. But she loves you. I know she does. That's what makes this so hard. He set down his coffee cup. You know what's ironic? When your mother first told me she was pregnant with Talia and that the baby wasn't mine, my first thought wasn't anger or betrayal. It was fear. Fear that I wouldn't be able to love another man's child, especially my brother's. But you did. From the moment I first held her, he confirmed. The moment the nurse put that tiny, red-faced bundle in my arms, biology stopped mattering. She was mine. In every way that counted, she was my daughter. Then tell her that, I urged. Make her understand. I've tried. He rubbed a hand over his face. But maybe I haven't tried hard enough. Maybe I've been too afraid of losing her to really fight for her. Before I could respond, we heard raised voices from the living room. We hurried in to find Talia and my mother in what appeared to be a heated discussion, though they fell silent when they noticed us. Everything okay in here? My father asked cautiously. Fine, my mother said too quickly. Just some last-minute wedding details. Talia said nothing, her jaw set in a way I recognized from childhood, pure Mitchell stubbornness, though I now wondered which Mitchell she'd inherited it from. Well, I should go check on the flowers at the venue, my mother continued, grabbing her purse. Knox, why don't you come with me? My father hesitated, looking at Talia, who deliberately turned away. The rejection was so blatant that even Uncle Callum, entering from the dining room, noticed the tension. Whoa, who died in here, he joked, then winced at his own poor timing. Sorry, bad choice of words at a wedding. No one laughed. My parents slipped out the front door, leaving me with Talia and Uncle Callum in an uncomfortable silence. So, Callum cleared his throat. Is this a typical pre-wedding family freakout, or did I miss something? It's nothing, I said quickly. Just wedding stress. Right. He didn't look convinced. Well, I actually wanted to give Talia her gift before the ceremony. That okay with you, kiddo? Talia seemed to snap back to attention. Gift? Yeah, I've been saving it for a special occasion. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. This seemed like the right time. Talia's hand shook slightly as she accepted the box. When she opened it, her sharp intake of breath was audible. Inside was an antique gold locket on a delicate chain. It was our grandmother's, Callum explained. Mom gave it to me years ago, said I should pass it on to my daughter someday. He shrugged. Since I never had kids, I figured my niece was the next best thing. The irony of his words hung heavy in the air. I watched Talia's face carefully, afraid she might break down or blurt out the truth. Instead, she carefully removed the locket from the box. It's beautiful, she said softly. Open it, Callum urged. Inside the locket was a tiny, faded photo of a young woman, our grandmother, as the bride. On the opposite side was a newer photo that had been carefully sized to fit. Talia on her college graduation day, beaming in her cap and gown. I had that added, Callum said, a hint of pride in his voice. Thought it was fitting, two Mitchell women at milestone moments. Talia stared at the locket for a long moment. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Thank you. Don't get all emotional on me. Callum waved her off, though he looked pleased by her reaction. Just wanted you to have a piece of family history to carry with you today. Family history. The phrase hung between us, loaded with meaning that only Talia and I understood. Would you put it on me? Talia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Callum looked surprised but pleased. Sure thing, kiddo. As he fastened the clasp around Talia's neck, I saw something shift in my sister's expression, a resolution forming, a decision being made. My stomach tightened with apprehension. Actually, Uncle Callum, she began, there's something I need to tell you. The front door burst open and Ren rushed in, still buttoning his dress shirt. Sorry I'm late. The guy's lunch ran long and he stopped, sensing the tension. Everything okay? Fine, Talia said quickly, her hand closing around the locket. Just having a moment with family. Ren's eyes flicked between Talia, Callum, and me, clearly reading the situation better than Callum could. Right. Well, I hate to interrupt, but Talia, your mom's looking for you. Something about the veil. I should go check on that, Talia said, obviously grateful for the interruption. She turned to Callum. We'll talk later, okay? After the ceremony? Count on it. Callum smiled, oblivious to what he'd narrowly avoided. That locket looks perfect on you, by the way. Like it was made for you. If he noticed how Talia's smile faltered, he didn't show it. As she hurried upstairs, Ren caught my eye and tilted his head toward the kitchen. I followed him there while Callum rejoined the other guests in the backyard. She was about to tell him, wasn't she? Ren asked the moment we were alone. I nodded. I think so. Damn it. He ran a hand through his hair. I thought we'd agreed to wait until after the honeymoon. We? You and Talia discussed this? Of course we did. She's my fiancé. We don't keep secrets from each other. His tone wasn't accusatory, but I felt the sting nonetheless. Our family had built a fortress of secrets. What did you decide? That Callum deserves to know the truth, but not like this. Not at our wedding with 50 people around. He leaned against the counter. The plan was to invite him over when we get back from the honeymoon. Tell him privately, with Knox and Deirdre present. That sounds reasonable, I acknowledged. But Talia seems to be having second thoughts. It's the locket, Rin said. That threw her off. The irony was too much. Before I could respond, we heard a crash from upstairs, followed by my mother's voice calling Talia's name with alarm. Ren and I exchanged worried glances and raced up the stairs. We found Talia in her bedroom, a shattered vase at her feet, water and flowers scattered across the floor. My mother stood in the doorway, her face pale. What happened? Ren asked, going immediately to Talia's side. I can't do this, Talia said, her voice eerily calm despite the chaos around her. I can't go through with this wedding. Not like this. Not with all these lies. Talia, please, my mother began, but Talia cut her off. No, Mom. I'm done pretending. I'm done with the lies. She turned to Ren. I'm sorry, but I can't marry you today. Not with this hanging over us. Ren's face fell, but he nodded slowly. If that's what you want, we can postpone. We'll tell everyone you're not feeling well. That would be another lie, Talia said. I'm tired of lies. She moved to the window, where she had a clear view of the backyard. I followed her gaze to see Uncle Callum chatting with relatives, drink in hand, completely unaware that his world was about to change forever. I'm going to tell him, Talia announced. Before the ceremony, he deserves to know who I really am. Talia, think about what you're doing, my mother pleaded. Think about your father, about Knox. I am thinking about him, Talia said, turning to face us. I'm thinking about both my fathers, the one who raised me and the one who never got the chance. This will destroy Knox, my mother whispered. You already did that 28 years ago, Talia replied coldly, when you slept with his brother. My mother flinched as if she'd been slapped. The room fell silent except for the sound of the hallway clock ticking down to 0 hour. Talia, Ren said gently, whatever you decide to do, I'm with you. But let's think this through. I have thought it through. She fingered the locket at her throat. Uncle Callum said this should have gone to his daughter. Well, here I am. Before any of us could respond, there was a knock at the bedroom door. When I opened it, I found my father standing in the hallway, his face grave. Talia, he said softly, can we talk? Please. Talia hesitated, then nodded once, curtly. Alone, he added. The rest of us filed out, my mother squeezing my hand as we passed. Ren, my mother, and I waited in the hallway, the closed door between us and whatever confrontation was about to unfold, feeling as substantial as a vault door. What do you think will happen? I whispered to Ren. I don't know, he admitted. But whatever Talia decides, we need to support her. My mother said nothing, her lips moving in what might have been a silent prayer. The minutes stretched on, the muffled sounds of conversation from behind the door giving no hint of what was being said. Finally, the door opened. My father emerged first, his eyes red but his face composed. Talia followed, her expression unreadable. Well? My mother asked anxiously. Talia looked at each of us in turn, then down at the locket around her neck. The decision she was about to announce would change our family forever. I need to speak to Uncle Callum, she said. Now. Before anything else happens. I'll get him, Ren offered immediately. No, Talia said, touching his arm. I need to do this myself. My father stepped forward. Talia, are you sure this is what you want? She looked at him for a long moment. It's not about what I want anymore. It's about what's right. Without waiting for a response, she headed downstairs. We followed, a solemn procession trailing behind the bride who might or might not be getting married today. In the backyard, guests were starting to arrive for the ceremony. My mother quickly directed them to the front of the house where the wedding coordinator was checking names off a list. Just a slight change of plans, she assured them with a brittle smile. Everything's fine. Talia scanned the yard until she spotted Uncle Callum helping arrange chairs. She squared her shoulders and walked toward him, the determination in her stride reminding me forcefully of our father, of Knox. Uncle Callum, she called. Can I speak with you privately? It's important. Callum looked up, surprise crossing his features. Now? Aren't you supposed to be getting all Britified or whatever? Please, Talia insisted. It won't take long. Callum shrugged good-naturedly. Sure thing, kiddo. He followed her toward the small garden shed at the back of the property that Dad had converted into a home office years ago. As they disappeared inside, I glanced at my father. His face was ashen, but he stood straight, his jaw set in the same determined way as Talia's. My mother moved to his side and took his hand. Should we? I began, gesturing toward the shed. No, my father said firmly. This is between them now. Ren paced nervously, checking his watch. The ceremony's in less than 2 hours. People are already arriving. I know, my mother said. I'll tell the coordinator to stall. As she hurried off, I approached my father. What do you say to her? Upstairs? He kept his eyes fixed on the shed. The truth. That I've loved her from the moment she was born. That biology doesn't make a father. Love does. That whatever she decides, I'll support her. His voice cracked slightly. And that I'm sorry. For the lies. For not being brave enough to tell her the truth years ago. Do you think it made a difference? He finally looked at me, a sad smile on his face. I hope so. But in the end, it's her choice. Her life. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as we waited. Guests continued to arrive, creating a steady hum of conversation at the front of the house. My mother returned, her professional educator's smile firmly in place despite the panic in her eyes. The coordinator's telling everyone there's been a slight delay, she reported. But we can't keep this up much longer. Suddenly, the shed door opened. Uncle Callum emerged first, his face unreadable. He stood still for a moment, staring at nothing, then slowly walked toward us. Talia followed a few steps behind, her expression similarly guarded. When Callum reached us, he stopped directly in front of my father. For a terrible moment, I thought he might punch him. Instead, he spoke in a voice so low I had to strain to hear it. You raised her. It wasn't a question. My father nodded once. Yes. All these years. You knew, and you never said anything. I'm sorry, my father said simply. Uncle Callum shook his head, a complicated mix of emotions crossing his face. I had a daughter. For 28 years, I had a daughter, and no one told me. The decision was mine, my father said. Deirdre wanted to tell you, but I was afraid of losing both of you. Callum's eyes, so similar to Talia's, flickered toward my mother, who stood frozen a few feet away. Whatever he might have said to her was interrupted by Talia stepping between them. This isn't helping, she said firmly. What's done is done. We can't change the past, but we can decide what happens now. Callum turned to her, his expression softening. You look so much like Mom. I always thought it was just the Mitchell genes, but it's more than that, Talia agreed quietly. An uncomfortable silence fell. Wren broke it, clearing his throat. I hate to bring this up, he said, but we have about 100 people expecting a wedding in less than 2 hours. Talia nodded, taking a deep breath. I know. And there will be a wedding. She looked at each of us in turn. But first, we need to decide how to handle this. All of us, together. She led us inside to the living room, closing the door behind us. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of 28 years of secrets hung in the air between us. I still can't believe it, Callum finally said, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so like Talia's that it made my chest ache. All these years, all those birthdays and Christmases. I'm sorry, my mother said softly. We should have told you both a long time ago. Damn right you should have, Callum agreed, but there was more pain than anger in his voice. He turned to Talia. What do you want to do now, kiddo? It's your wedding day. Your call. Talia looked at my father. Dad, she stopped, hesitating. Knox, I don't know what to call you anymore. Dad is fine, my father said, his voice thick with emotion. That's who I've always been to you. Talia nodded, blinking back tears. Dad, I want you to walk me down the aisle. You're the one who raised me, who taught me to ride a bike, who helped me with my math homework. That hasn't changed. My father's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you, he whispered. But, Talia continued, turning to Callum, I want you there too. I don't know what our relationship is going to look like going forward, but you're my biological father. I want to acknowledge that. Callum looked stunned. You want me in the ceremony? After everything that's happened? I don't want to start this new chapter of my life with secrets and lies, Talia explained. I want the truth. All of it, out in the open. What exactly are you suggesting? My mother asked cautiously. Talia took a deep breath. I want both of them to walk me down the aisle. My father who raised me, and my biological father. The room fell silent as we all processed this suggestion. It was unprecedented, unconventional, and completely unexpected, just like our family situation. What will people think? My mother worried. What will we tell them? The truth, Talia said simply. Not every detail, not everyone's business. But enough. That Callum is my biological father, that Knox raised me as his own, and that today I'm acknowledging both of them. Are you sure? Wren asked gently. That's a lot for one day. Talia reached for his hand. I'm sure. I'm tired of secrets. Aren't you the one who always says relationships should be built on honesty? I am, he agreed with a small smile. And I support whatever you decide. My father and Callum exchanged a look that contained decades of complicated history. I'll understand if you don't want to do this, Talia told them. Either of you. It's a lot to ask. I'll do it, my father said immediately. Whatever makes you happy, Talia. Callum hesitated, then nodded slowly. If that's what you want, then yes. Though I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. Just stand on my other side, Talia explained. When the minister asks who gives this woman in marriage, you both answer. What about the guests? My mother asked. They'll be confused. We'll have the officiant make a brief announcement before the ceremony, Talia decided. Something simple. No dramatic details. For the first time since this crisis began, I saw genuine hope in my sister's eyes. She was taking control, forging a path forward that acknowledged the past without being imprisoned by it. There's something else, she added, her voice softer now. I'd like to change my name. Not legally, not right away, but for today, for the ceremony. She looked at my father, her expression uncertain. Would it be okay if I used Mitchell Calloway? My father's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded. Of course. It's your name. Callum looked startled. Calloway? You take my name? It's part of who I am, Talia said simply. A part I never knew until now. My mother stepped forward, her composure finally breaking. I'm so sorry, Talia. For the lies, for the secrets. I never meant to hurt you. Talia hesitated, then embraced her. I know, Mom. I'm still angry, and we have a lot to work through. But not today. Today is about new beginnings. I watched this scene unfold with a mixture of awe and relief. Somehow, my sister had found a way forward through this impossible situation. She was neither denying the past nor allowing it to dictate her future. We should tell the wedding coordinator about the changes, Wren suggested, ever practical. And I should probably get dressed. Right, Talia agreed, wiping her eyes. The wedding's still on. Just with a few adjustments. As everyone began to move with renewed purpose, I caught Talia's arm. Are you really okay with all of this? She gave me a tremulous smile. No, not completely, but I will be. She touched the locket around her neck. This belongs to me. Really belongs to me. There's something right about that, don't you think? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang, more guests arriving for a wedding that would be unlike anything they expected. I should go finish getting ready, Talia said. Would you help me with my dress? I nodded, following her upstairs. In her bedroom, the wedding gown hung on the closet door, a simple, elegant design that Talia had chosen months ago, before her world turned upside down. Are you sure about all of this? I asked as I helped her into the dress. It's a lot of change for one day. I'm sure, she said, her voice steadier than I expected. When I was in that shed with Uncle Callum with my biological father, I realized something. The truth hurts, but secrets destroy. They eat away at you from the inside. What did he say when you told him? I couldn't help asking. Talia's expression softened. He cried. Can you believe it? I've never seen Uncle Callum cry before. He kept saying I had a daughter over and over, like he couldn't quite believe it. Was he angry? At Mom and Dad? Yes, at first. But then, it was like something shifted. He asked me about my childhood, if I'd been happy, if Knox had been good to me. She smiled faintly. When I told him yes, he just nodded and said, then my brother did right by you. I think in that moment, he understood why they made the choices they did, even if he doesn't agree with them. I fastened the last button on her dress. And what about you? Do you understand their choices? Talia was quiet for a moment, considering the question. I understand that they were young and scared, that they thought they were doing what was best. I understand that Knox chose to love me as his own, even when he didn't have to. She turned to face me. But understanding doesn't mean I agree with the line. That's why today needs to be different. A knock at the door interrupted us. It was my mother, looking both anxious and determined. The guests are all seated, she reported. The officiant has been briefed. And your fathers are waiting downstairs. She emphasized the plural deliberately. How's Dad doing? Talia asked. Which one? My mother asked, then caught herself. I'm sorry, that was... Knox is nervous but holding up. Callum is... She shook her head, at a loss for words. Is he still going through with it? I asked. Yes, they both are. My mother hesitated. Talia, are you absolutely certain about this? It's not too late to have a traditional ceremony. Talia looked at herself in the mirror, smoothing the front of her gown. I'm sure, Mom. This is who I am now, daughter of Knox and Deirdre Mitchell, biological child of Colm Calloway. I can't pretend anymore, and I don't want to. My mother nodded, accepting this with a grace I hadn't expected. Then it's time. Your fathers are waiting. The word hung in the air between us. Fathers, plural. A new reality we were all still adjusting to. Downstairs, we found my father and Caleb standing awkwardly in the foyer, both in suits, neither looking at the other. When Talia appeared at the top of the stairs in her wedding gown, both men looked up, identical expressions of pride and wonder crossing their faces. You look beautiful, my father said, his voice thick with emotion. Stunning, Caleb agreed. Absolutely stunning. Talia descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. When she reached the bottom, she stood before the two men who, in different ways, had shaped her life. Thank you both, she said, for being here, for doing this. Wouldn't miss it, my father said. Nowhere else I'd rather be, Callum added. Talia took a deep breath, then held our arms, one to each man. Shall we? My father took her right arm, Callum her left. For a moment, they stood there, an unlikely trio connected by blood, choice, and decades of complicated history. Ready? Talia asked them. Both men nodded, and together they headed toward the back door that led to the garden where 100 guests waited for a ceremony none of them could possibly expect. I followed behind with my mother, watching as my sister prepared to step into her future with both her past and present accompanying her. Whatever happened next, Talia had made her choice. She was facing the truth, embracing all parts of herself, and moving forward on her own terms. As we approached the garden, the wedding music began to play. The moment of truth had arrived. As we stepped into the garden, a collective murmur ripples through the assembled guests. The wedding coordinator looked panicked at the sight of the bride being escorted by two men rather than one, but Talia gave her a reassuring nod. The officiant, Pastor Brennan, who had known our family for years, stepped forward with a microphone. He cleared his throat nervously, clearly aware that this was not the ceremony he had rehearsed. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. Before we proceed, the bride has requested a brief announcement. He glanced at Talia, who gave him an encouraging nod. Today, Talia will be escorted down the aisle by both Knox Mitchell, the father who raised her, and Callum Calloway, her biological father. This represents Talia's wish to honor both men who have shaped her life. The murmurs grew louder. I could see relatives exchanging confused glances, friends whispering behind programs. My grandmother, seated in the front row, looked bewildered. Additionally, Pastor Brennan continued, for today's ceremony, the bride will be using the name Talia Mitchell Calloway to acknowledge her full heritage. More whispers. My mother, standing beside me, gripped my hand so tightly it hurt. Thank you for your understanding, Pastor Brennan concluded. Now, let us proceed with this celebration of love. He nodded to the string quartet, who began playing the processional music we had rehearsed just yesterday, a lifetime ago it seemed now. As maid of honor, I was supposed to walk down the aisle first. I gave Talia a quick hug, whispering, I'm so proud of you," before taking my position at the head of the aisle. With all eyes on me, I began the slow walk toward where Ren stood waiting at the altar. He looked pale but composed, his eyes fixed not on me but on the space behind me where Talia would soon appear. When I reached my place opposite Ren, I turned to watch my sister's entrance. The music shifted to the traditional bridal march, and the guests rose to their feet. And then, there she was, Talia, radiant in her wedding gown, flanked by the two men who were both, in different ways, her father. My father on her right, his face a mask of dignified emotion. Uncle Callum, no, her biological father Callum, on her left, looking stunned and proud and terrified all at once. They moved in perfect step, an unlikely trio united by love and blood in decades of complicated history. Talia's face was serene, her eyes locked on Ren, who watched her approach with undisguised adoration. As they reached the altar, Pastor Brennan asked the traditional question, "Who gives this woman to be married to this man?" "We do," my father and Callum answered in unison, their voices blending into one. My father kissed Talia's cheek, then stepped back. After a moment's hesitation, Callum did the same. Talia squeezed both their hands before turning to face Ren, who took her hands in his. The ceremony proceeded, outwardly traditional despite the unorthodox beginning. Pastor Brennan spoke about love and commitment, about building a future together. If he was rattled by the family drama that had just unfolded, he hit it well. When it came time for the vows, Ren went first, his voice steady and clear. "Talia, when I met you 3 years ago, I thought I knew exactly who you were. Brilliant, compassionate, occasionally stubborn." A ripple of knowing laughter spread through the guests. But as I've come to love you more deeply, I've learned that you're constantly evolving, constantly surprising me. Yesterday, you showed me once again that you're the strongest, bravest person I know. I promise to love every version of you, past, present, and future. I promise to face whatever life throws at us with the same courage you've shown today. And I promise that no matter how complicated life gets, my love for you will remain the simplest, truest thing I know. Tears streamed down Talia's face as she listened. When it was her turn, she had to take several deep breaths before speaking. "Ren, when we decided to get married, I thought I knew exactly who I was. Yesterday, I discovered that wasn't entirely true." Her voice wavered but grew stronger as she continued. "But one thing that hasn't changed, that will never change, is how much I love you. You've stood by me through the hardest moment of my life. You've shown me that love isn't about perfect circumstances, it's about perfect commitment. I promise to love you with the same unwavering support you've shown me. I promise to be honest, even when it's difficult. And I promise that no matter how much else might change, my heart will always find its home with you." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Even Pastor Brennan had to clear his throat several times before continuing with the ceremony. After they exchanged rings, Pastor Brennan pronounced them husband and wife. Ren pulled Talia into a kiss that seemed to seal not just their marriage, but a promise that they could weather any storm together. As the newlyweds turned to face the guests, hand in hand, applause erupted, tentative at first, then building to a crescendo. Whatever confusion or judgment might have been present earlier seemed washed away by the genuine love that had been on display. The reception that followed was surreal. Most guests seemed unsure how to address the elephant in the room. They congratulated Talia and Ren enthusiastically enough, but conversations died awkwardly whenever my father and Callum came near each other. I watched them both throughout the evening, these two brothers, now bound by even more complicated ties than before. They orbited each other cautiously, never quite coming together, but never straying too far apart either. Occasionally, I caught them watching each other when they thought no one would notice, decades of brotherhood and betrayal and shared love for Talia creating a gravity between them that neither seemed able to escape. My mother moved through the reception with a gracious smile that never quite reached her eyes. She hugged guests, directed the caterers, and kept everything running smoothly, as if managing the logistics of the day could somehow atone for the secrets of the past. During dinner, my father was supposed to give a toast. He approached the microphone slowly, looking more uncertain than I'd ever seen him. "For those of you who don't already know," he began, "today has been unexpected." A nervous chuckle rippled through the crowd. 28 years ago, I made a choice to raise Talia as my own, knowing she was not biologically mine. It was the best decision I ever made. He paused, his eyes finding Talia among the guests. Being your father has been the greatest privilege of my life, Talia. Biology doesn't make a family, love does. Showing up does. Being there does. He smiled faintly. Someone very wise told me that recently. I felt Talia's eyes flick toward me briefly before returning to my father. I won't pretend the path that brought us here was perfect, he continued. There were secrets that should have been shared long ago. Truths that should have been acknowledged. For that, I am sorry. His voice broke slightly. But I am not sorry for loving you as my daughter every single day of your life. That has been my honor and my joy. He raised his glass. To Talia and Ren, may your marriage be built on the honesty and courage you've both shown today. As applause filled the tent, Callum suddenly stood, reaching for the microphone. My mother tensed beside me, but there was nothing we could do to stop him. I'd like to say something too, if that's all right, Callum said. His voice was rougher than my father's, less practiced at public speaking. I found out today that I have a daughter. He looked directly at Talia. A daughter I never knew about, who grew up calling me uncle. I miss first steps, first words, scraped knees, and graduation ceremonies. I miss teaching you to drive and threatening your first boyfriend. A sad smile crossed his face. I missed a lot. The tent had gone completely silent, everyone hanging on his words. But here's what I didn't miss, Callum continued. I didn't miss seeing you grow into an extraordinary woman. I didn't miss getting to know your kind heart, your sharp mind, your stubborn streak, which, by the way, definitely comes from my side of the family. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the guests. And most importantly, I didn't miss seeing you find someone who loves you exactly as you deserve to be loved. He nodded toward Ren. So while I'm still processing everything, there's one thing I know for certain. You were raised by a good man. He looked directly at my father. My brother gave you what I couldn't have: stability, guidance, unconditional love. For that, I will always be grateful to him. He raised his glass toward Knox. To my brother, who did right by my daughter when I couldn't. The silence that followed was deafening. My father stared at Callum, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, he raised his own glass as acknowledgement. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a beginning, a crack in the wall of secrets and resentment that had stood between them for 28 years. Talia, who had been watching this exchange with tears in her eyes, suddenly stood and walked to the center of the room. She took the microphone from Callum. I want to thank everyone for being here today, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion evident on her face. This wedding didn't turn out exactly as planned, but in many ways, it's become more meaningful than I could have imagined. She looked around at the faces watching her, some confused, some concerned, all supportive in their presence. Today, I married the love of my life, she continued, reaching for Ren's hand as he joined her. But I also embraced a truth about myself that I never knew, a truth that expands my family. Rather than diminishing it, she turned to look at Knox and Callum, standing a few feet apart. I have been blessed with two fathers, one who chose me, and one who created me. Some people might see that as complicated or messy. I choose to see it as an abundance of love. She raised her glass. So my toast is to family, not just the ones we're born to, but the ones we choose. The ones who show up. The ones who stay. The entire room raised their glasses, the mood shifting from awkward tension to something approaching celebration. As the evening progressed, I watched my sister navigate her new reality with grace. She danced with both fathers, first with Knox, to the father-daughter song we had rehearsed, and then with Callum, to a song chosen on the spot. Both dances brought tears to my eyes for different reasons. Near the end of the night, I found myself alone with Talia for a moment as she took a break from greeting guests. How are you holding up? I asked. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Surprisingly okay. Better than okay, actually. I feel whole, for the first time in days. Are you and Ren still going on your honeymoon tomorrow? Yes. 2 weeks in Hawaii, far from all of this. She gestured around the reception. We both need the space to process. And when you come back? What then? Talia glanced across the room, where Knox and Callum were engaged in what appeared to be their first direct conversation of the evening. Then we figure out what our family looks like now. All of us, together. You make it sound so simple. Oh, it won't be, she acknowledged. There will be therapy. Lots of therapy. Probably some yelling. Definitely some tears. But we'll get there. How can you be so sure? She fingered the locket that still hung around her neck. Because family is worth fighting for. All of my family. As she spoke, I saw Ren approaching, his face lighting up at the sight of his wife. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but they're about to do the bouquet toss. Talia nodded, then impulsively hugged me. Thank you, Avies, she whispered, for being my rock through all of this, for reminding me what family really means. Always, I promised. That's what sisters do. Sisters, she repeated, squeezing my hand. That's one thing that hasn't changed. That will never change. She allowed Ren to lead her back to the dance floor, where guests were gathering for the bouquet toss. I stayed behind, watching as my sister, radiant despite everything, or perhaps because of it, took her place in the center of the crowd. Across the room, I saw my parents standing together, not quite touching, but closer than they had been all day. Nearby, Callum leaned against a pillar, his expression thoughtful as he watched Talia prepare to throw her bouquet. This wasn't the perfect picture postcard wedding we had planned. It was messy and complicated and painfully honest. But as I looked around at my imperfect, expanded, truth-telling family, I realized it was exactly the wedding Talia needed, not just a ceremony joining her to Ren, but a moment of claiming her full identity, embracing all parts of herself and her story. As Talia counted down and tossed her bouquet into the crowd of waiting hands, I thought about the words she had spoken earlier. Family is not just who we're born to, but who we choose. Today, Talia had chosen them all, Knox, Callum, our mother, Ren, and me. She had chosen truth over comfortable lies. And in doing so, she had shown us all what real courage looks like. 3 months after Talia's wedding, I stood in the driveway of my parents' house, staring up at the familiar facade. Fall had arrived, painting the oak trees in fiery shades of red and gold. A cool breeze rustled through the leaves, carrying the scent of my mother's apple cider, a family tradition for our annual autumn gathering, as she insisted on calling it. This year's gathering would be different. For the first time, Uncle Callum wasn't just visiting as my father's brother. He was coming as Talia's biological father, officially acknowledged as part of our expanded family circle. Are you going to stand out there all day, or are you coming inside? One father called from the front door, startling me from my thoughts. I smiled, grabbing my overnight bag from the car. Just taking a moment. It's been a while. My move to Chicago after art school had meant I only came home for major holidays and special occasions. But after Talia's wedding, coming home felt more important than ever. How's everything? I asked as my father hugged me. Better, he said simply. Different, but better. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and apples, my mother's way of creating normalcy through familiar comforts. She emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Avery, you're early. She embraced me warmly. Thought I'd come help set up, I explained. Where's Talia? She and Ren are on their way. Should be here any minute. My mother hesitated, then added, Callum's coming for dinner too. He's bringing dessert. The careful way she said his name told me everything I needed to know about where things stood. Progress, but slow. Healing, but with scars. How's that been going? I asked, following her back to the kitchen. The new arrangement. My mother sighed, returning to the pot of cider she was stirring on the stove. It's an adjustment, for all of us, but we're trying. Your mother's being modest, my father said, leaning against the doorframe. She's been incredible through all of this. Strong, patient. The look that passed between my parents spoke of decades of shared history, the good and the bad, the secrets and the truths, the forgiveness that was still a work in progress. And how are you and Callum doing? I asked my father directly. He considered the question, his expression thoughtful. We're finding our way back to being brothers. Some days are easier than others. He gave a wry smile. It helps that Talia wants us both in her life. Gives us a reason to figure it out. The sound of a car in the driveway interrupted our conversation. Through the kitchen window, I saw Talia and Ren climbing out of their SUV. Behind them, another car pulled up, Callum's rental. Perfect timing, my mother murmured, but her suddenly tense shoulders betrayed her nervousness. We gathered in the front hall as Talia and Ren came in, bringing the crisp autumn air with them. Talia looked happier than I'd seen her in years, her eyes bright, her smile genuine as she hugged each of us. Sorry we're late, she apologized. Traffic was terrible. You're right on time, my father assured her, embracing Ren with genuine warmth. Whatever tensions might still exist in our family, Ren had proven himself an ally to everyone, a bridge between competing loyalties. The front door opened again, and Callum stepped in holding a bakery box. Hope everyone likes cheesecake, he announced, then stopped short at the sight of all of us gathered in the hall. Am I interrupting a moment? Not at all, Talia said quickly, crossing to hug him. Perfect timing. I watched as my father extended his hand to Callum, who shifted the bakery box to accept the handshake. It was formal, careful, but genuine, two men trying to forge a new relationship from the ashes of an old one. My mother took the cheesecake, thanking Callum with a politeness that couldn't quite mask her discomfort. 3 months wasn't enough to erase 28 years of secrets, but it was a start. Dinner was a study in cautious optimism. We sat around the dining table that had witnessed countless family meals, now with an expanded definition of family. The conversation flowed more naturally than I had expected, carefully navigating around certain topics but finding plenty of safe ground. Ren, bless him, kept things moving with stories from their honeymoon and updates about their new house. I contributed tales from my latest art commission, a mural for a children's hospital in Chicago that had finally given me the professional recognition I'd been working toward. It wasn't until dessert that Talia cleared her throat and reached for Ren's hand. We actually have some news, she announced. The table fell silent, all eyes turning to her. I'm pregnant, she said, her free hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. Due in April. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my mother gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. A baby? She whispered. I'm going to be a grandmother. Talia nodded, her eyes shining. We just found out last week. Wanted to tell everyone in person. The news broke the careful restraint we'd all been maintaining. My mother burst into happy tears, rushing around the table to embrace Talia. My father followed, clapping Ren on the shoulder before kissing Talia's cheek. I joined the huddle, genuinely thrilled for my sister and brother-in-law. Only Callum remained seated, his expression a complex mix of emotions. When our initial excitement calmed, he stood and raised his glass. Congratulations, he said simply. You're going to be wonderful parents. Talia met his gaze across the table. Thank you, she said softly. Then, after a moment's hesitation, this baby will have 3 grandparents who love them very much. The acknowledgement, so simple, yet so profound, seemed to transform Callum's expression. He blinked rapidly, nodding his thanks when words failed him. My father, watching this exchange, did something that surprised all of us. He raised his own glass and looked directly at Callum. To family, he said. All of us. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. It wasn't forgetting. But it was acceptance, an acknowledgement that the past couldn't be changed, but the future was still unwritten. Later that evening, after dinner had been cleared and coffee served, I found Talia sitting alone on the back porch swing. The same swing where, 3 months ago, we had sat together the night before her wedding, trying to make sense of a family imploding. Mind if I join you? I asked. She patted the space beside her. I was hoping you would. I sat, the familiar creak of the swing bringing back memories of countless conversations over the years. So a baby, I said, bumping her shoulder gently with mine. How are you feeling about that? Terrified. Excited. Mostly terrified, she admitted with a small laugh. But in a good way, I think. You're going to be an amazing mom. I hope so. She was quiet for a moment, her hand absently touching her stomach. I've been thinking a lot about family lately, about what we inherit and what we choose. Understandable, given everything. She nodded. The DNA test that started all of this, it showed medical history, genetic traits, all these biological connections. But it couldn't show the bedtime stories Dad read to me, or how he taught me to ride a bike, or sat up with me all night when I had the flu. The things that really make a parent, I supplied. Exactly. She looked toward the house, where through the window we could see our father and Callum engaged in what appeared to be an actual conversation. I want my child to know both their grandfathers, to understand that family is complicated and messy, but that doesn't make it any less valuable. Have you and Ren talked about what the baby will call everyone? We're working on it, she said with a smile. Dad will always be Grandpa, I think. For Callum, we're considering Papa or something similar. Different but equal. The thoughtfulness of this decision struck me. Talia wasn't trying to pretend the past hadn't happened, but she wasn't allowing it to dictate the future either. What about you? She asked, changing the subject. Mom mentioned you're seeing someone? I felt my cheeks warm. It's early days. His name is Leo. He's a graphic designer I met while working on the hospital mural. Serious? Getting there, I admitted. He wants to meet the family at some point. Talia laughed. Well, we're certainly an interesting bunch to bring someone home to now. That's one word for it. We fell silent, the swing creaking rhythmically beneath us. Through the window, I could see my mother joining my father and Callum, offering them more coffee. The scene was almost ordinary, almost. Do you think they'll ever truly recover? I asked quietly. Mom and Dad? Dad and Callum. Talia considered the question seriously. I think they'll find a new normal. It won't be the same as before, but maybe it'll be better in some ways. More honest, at least. And what about you? Have you forgiven them? I'm working on it, she said thoughtfully. The thing about forgiveness is that it's not a single moment. It's a process. Some days I'm angry about the lies. Other days I understand why they made the choices they did. She smiled faintly. Becoming a parent myself might help with that understanding. You've handled all of this with amazing grace, I told her sincerely. She shook her head. Not always. You should hear some of our therapy sessions. You're still doing that? All of you? Once a week. Family therapy with a specialist in adoption and family identity issues. She laughed at my surprised expression. What? You think we're figuring this out on our own? We need professional help. Her candor made me laugh too. Fair enough. Is it helping? Slowly. It gives us a safe space to say the hard things, to ask the difficult questions. She looked at me thoughtfully. You should join us sometime. This affects you too, Evie. I hadn't considered that. In focusing on Talia's identity crisis, I hadn't fully processed how these revelations had changed my own understanding of our family. Maybe I will, I said, though I'm not the one who had my whole identity upended. No, but you're part of this family too. Your perspective matters. She squeezed my hand. Besides, I need my little sister there. You've always been good at calling things as you see them. The back door opened, and Ren stepped out. Sorry to interrupt sister time, but your mom's bringing out the photo albums. Fair warning. Talia groaned. Which ones? Baby pictures, I think. Your dad, Knox, is showing Callum your first birthday photos. The significance of this wasn't lost on any of us. For Knox to willingly share those memories with Callum represented a profound step forward. We should probably rescue them before it gets awkward, Talia said, standing. As we head aside, I caught a glimpse of our family gathered in the living room. My mother carefully turning pages of a photo album, my father pointing out specific pictures to Callum, who leaned in with genuine interest. It wasn't perfect. The tension was still there, visible in careful postures and measured words. But there was something else too, an effort, a willingness to build something new from the ruins of what had been destroyed. That night, as I lay in my childhood bedroom staring at the glow in the dark stars Talia had helped me stick to the ceiling so many years ago, I thought about what she had said about family, that it's not just who we're born to, but who we choose. Our family had been forced to redefine itself, to expand its boundaries to include uncomfortable truths and new relationships. The process had been painful, messy, and ongoing. But as I drifted off to sleep, I realized something important. A family built on truth, however difficult, was stronger than one built on lies, however comfortable. In the morning, I came downstairs to find my father and Callum sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and talking quietly. They weren't exactly comfortable, but they were trying. For Talia, for the grandchild who would soon connect them in yet another way, and perhaps for themselves too. "Morning," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Avery," my father acknowledged with a smile. "We were just discussing Thanksgiving plans. Callum's thinking of joining us this year. If that's okay with everyone," Callum added quickly. "Of course it is," I said, meaning it. "Your family." The word hung in the air between us, simple yet profound. Family. Not defined by perfect histories or uncomplicated relationships, but by the willingness to show up, to try, to love, even when it's difficult. As Talia and Bryn joined us, followed by my mother, I watched our expanded family circle find its morning rhythm. There were awkward moments, careful navigations of new boundaries, but there was laughter too, genuine connection breaking through the lingering tension. Later, as we all helped clear breakfast dishes, Talia pulled me aside. "Remember what you said to me the night before my wedding?" she asked. "About real family surviving even when things get messy?" I nodded, remembering that conversation on this very porch when everything seemed to be falling apart. "You were right," she said simply. "That's exactly what we're doing, surviving the mess together." As I looked around at our imperfect, complicated, truth-telling family, I knew she was right. We were surviving. More than that, we were rebuilding, creating something authentic from the ashes of comfortable lies. And in that rebuilding, we were discovering what family really means. Not perfect people with flawless histories, but flawed individuals choosing each other day after day, even when, especially when, it's hard.